are you exactly?
I am in Corona, California. That's really my city.
Is it really?
I live in Corona, but Corona does not live in me. And I'm embarrassed to tell
You're
people I'm
in
from Corona.
Corona, California, for real.
The last 16 years, yes, Corona, California. We are about 1 hour southeast of Los Angeles.
Have you been taking this personally?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I'm taking because you know what? It's just people are weird when they tell them I live in Corona. Like they're gonna catch it from me because I live in Corona.
Oh, that's funny.
I can't wait till our mayor have the coronavirus. That would be
Oh,
funny. I mean, it'd be sad, but it'll be
well,
funny.
yeah. I guess
Yeah.
you said. All right, I'm having trouble doing this, so I don't know. Let's see.
I'll tell you what you can do. If you go to Comedian Nazareth's page, you're gonna see the live. You just put share and
Right.
and it has and you put or just
Okay.
share it. Yeah,
Here,
just
share,
yeah, and it
and
will
then I
share it.
gotta copy it, don't I?
No,
Share,
just share it on your
but it
page.
won't go. It might go to my. Hold on. It might go to my. Hold on a second. Let me see what
Yeah,
page it's going to send it to.
that's awesome.
Well, I remember from years ago
Uh-huh.
when I first heard of you, and you started traveling on the road together. We did some dates together.
Yes, you helped me out. You had me open for you for a whole tour.
Oh well, I hope it helped.
It did. It helped me a lot. I'm home now.
Yeah.
No, everything was canceled for us, but that's for the pandemic. But you know what? We did a lot more. Remember, we toured you and Shonda and myself and Thor Ramsey and Lena.
Oh yes.
We toured on a tour bus. We spent a whole what several couple what we did. We did 4 or 5 convention centers and couple arenas and theaters.
Right.
That's right. But you know, I gotta introduce you to my audience. Whenever you're ready and share that, I'll introduce
I
you.
have almost, you can tell I still haven't, I'm okay. I've actually got it now.
That's
Well, I'll
awesome.
say, I'm here. I say, watch this.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go.
Here we go.
Oh,
How many? You have a
the,
lot of followers. You have
well, let's see
amazing.
if this helps bring anybody to the table.
Okay, well, let's start official. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the
Hi,
Laughter for
everybody.
All podcast with my friend, entertainer Mark Lowry. If you don't know Mark, of course you do. He's a singer, songwriter, author, humorist. He is best known for putting the lyric to the Christmas classic, Mary, Did You Know? He actually wrote the words for this song, ladies and gentlemen. It is Mark Lowry. I know a lot of people sing it, but he should. Do you get any credits for that, Mark, whenever they sing that song?
Well, uh, when you say credit,
Like
if they,
financially, like
oh
money,
yeah, yeah, royalties. You get royalties.
royalty.
Yeah,
Good,
if
good,
they
good.
record it and if they sell a lot of them,
I
or if
know.
they don't, you still get paid. You know,
I
I
know
mean,
there's a guy named CeeLo who was famous on, I think, The Voice or some show, and he actually sang the song, and people like, oh, I'm like, no, Mark,
no, there's a
the a cappella group, yeah, they sang
oh
it.
yes,
Well,
that the there's been the pentatonics group. Is that what you're talking about?
I think different people, and there's a lady that sang it, made it a disco song, and she actually, something
There is.
Catherine W. She sang
Yeah.
it. She did a good job.
Yes, she's actually incredible. She did a disco version. A friend of mine was on the disco floor with his phone in the air, jumping up and down, saying, "Mark, your song is playing in the disco." And I looked her up, and she enunciates every word. You could understand every word. So I was thrilled.
This is amazing, amazing. Now, remember, Mark, when you first started, you were very young, and God called you to be a singer, songwriter, correct? Not a comedian.
Well, yeah, I was in college and I thought it was the Lord. You know, I'm Baptist. We don't really know when the Lord's speaking to us or not because he doesn't speak to us audibly. He leaves, you know, all the Pentecostals, they get the audible callings, but Baptists, we have to learn to listen in our hearts, I guess. Because I've never heard any voice of God or anything, but I felt like that particular day, the Lord really impressed on me that I was supposed to go into music, Christian music. That's what I felt like, you know. So I started singing, and then I would go to these churches, you know, and sing, and I had to do something while the little old man in the back of the church would change the soundtrack, because each song was on one cassette tape, you know.
Oh, that's right.
And so I would set them in order. And then as I would sing, he would put one in, take one out. You know, that's back in the day when it was one song on each cassette. That's how I did it. And that little old man took forever. So I started talking. And I noticed when I would tell my stories about my life that people listened. You know, they listened a lot better when I was talking than when I was singing, it seemed to me like. I'd see them counting ceiling tiles while I was singing, but when I would talk, they would sit up on the edge of their seats, they'd listen, and they would laugh. That's how I knew they were listening. Because independent fundamental Baptists back in that day, they would not clap, because that's bringing, you know, giving glory to man.
Right.
They wouldn't shout because they're afraid someone might think they're doing it in another language. But they would laugh. And that's how I knew they were listening, because they were laughing. And all I cared about is, are they listening? Because if they're not listening, what a waste of time. Their time and my time.
That's true. You know, one of the things that I remember the funniest when I first heard of you many years ago, that you took the word from all my heart, and you're going, why we're using our heart? Why can't we say, I love you from the bottom of my kidney?
Yeah, well, you know, the scripture, there's somewhere in scriptures, I can't remember right now, because I hadn't thought about this in a long time, where it says the seat of the emotions is the bowels. The bowels, bowels, bowels. I saw that one day. I thought, wow. And I started thinking, well, what would you do? Say, I love you with all my bowels. You know, you broke my bowels. Or, you know, everywhere where you could say heart, put bowels, and it became a pretty funny bit.
That's funny. You know, even though you were a singer, you were with the Gaithers, which is the biggest. I mean, Gaither it's still huge. And you actually were what do you call it? The word I'm looking for is I tried to look it in the dictionary today. So you're not only a pioneer, but you are a trailblazer, because you were the first one. I mean, I came into comedy in 1990. I was not a Christian yet. I was doing the clubs and the comedy. And then when I accepted Christ in 1992 and started Christian comedy in 93, you were the name, you were the one there, and you were actually the legitimate one out there, that in a time where I was in California and you were in the, you know, in the South, where it's even harder. And I used to call people and say, hey, I'm a Christian comedian. You go, you're of the devil. But you were a trailblazer. You actually opened the road for all Christian comedy.
Well, there was a couple before me.
I know. What's his name?
Mike Warnke.
Okay.
And
Jerry Carley or Jerry Crowley?
Clower he wasn't really Christian. It was Jerry Clower was a Christian, but he did country comedy.
Right.
But there was one they give the award. I got the award. What's it? Oh, come on, Mark.
Oh, I know who you're talking about.
He was on Hee Haw.
Okay. But you were actually, I'll tell you what, I know Warnicki did a while and stopped. Yeah, you know, after what happened.
Grady Nutt.
Grady Nutt, the Grady Nutt Award. Yeah.
I never got to meet Grady Nutt, but I have his award.
I think we gave it to you at the Christian Comedy Association when I think I was the president at the time when we.
Well, the Gospel Music Association is the one that had.
Then we're not the one. We gave you something else, but you were out of town. But that's awesome. Hey,
so are you still part of that?
Yeah, I'm still part of it. I'm no longer president or on the board because I've been touring a lot. But yeah, I'm still there. And you were very influential. You and Shonda did a lot for it.
Well,
you and Ken Davis and all that. So
those are good people.
So yeah, you were in my book. You were the one that for me I looked to, because you opened the door. Like, okay, you can do comedy here. I could not sing for the life of me, but you open the door for us and you tell stories. And tell us, because when what is the magic about a story? Because you tell the greatest stories.
Well, to me, it's the one thing because I've had ADD all my life. I used to have ADHD, but when I turned 50, I dropped the H because I'm too tired to be, I'm too old, too tired to be that hyper.
uh,
But I still have ADD. But when I was a kid, when there were preachers that would come to our church who could paint a picture with words. I mean,
mm,
they just owned the language. And there was one named B.R. Lakin. He was an old man, and he'd raise his hand, and his hand would shake, and he'd talk about when the Lord Jesus walked down that aisle and asked me, "What can I do for you?" I mean, he gives a salvation testimony that would just knock your socks off. So I would be on the edge of my seat. But this same preacher, B.R. Lakin, would do a
uh,
20-minute comedy routine before he ever started preaching. Every night, it was at least 20 minutes of just funny, what joke, preacher jokes and stuff. I don't even know. It was just mesmerizing to me. And
uh,
then the next thing, before you knew it, this funny preacher had you at the feet of Jesus, and you never saw it coming.
mm.
And I loved that. And and so when the Lord called me to do this, and I found out that I wasn't going to be the greatest singer to ever sing, but because I would go to the Estes Park thing. Do you remember that? The singing
Yes,
in
I
Rocky?
remember in Colorado. Yeah.
Yeah, I would go to that as a registrant for years, and I'd sit back there, and I was doing 200 concerts a year at that time. I was doing, Roy Morgan was booking me,
Yes.
and he would take a road map, world map and a yardstick. And if it reached, he thought, no, that was another joke. I'd say it'd take a world map and a yardstick. And if it reached, he thought we could drive it in a weekend. But, but no, Roy booked me 43 concerts in 41 days right out of college. I mean, all the way across America and back. And it was independent Baptist churches. And I had honed my craft over those 8 years from 1980 to 1988 when I
Mm.
was doing about 200 concerts a year.
Wow.
I learned how to make Baptists laugh. And if you can make independent Baptists laugh, you can make anybody laugh, I
Yeah,
guess.
that's true.
But so I would go to Estes Park, and I'd sit back there, and I'd hear Steve Green. Oh,
Yeah.
what a singer. Larnell Harris,
Yeah.
Sandy Patty, Sheila Walsh, Twyla Paris. Trying to think of all the ones that were so big. And I was I was one of the registrants on the back row just shaking. Well, I would sit there and think to myself, I know I can't out sing any of them, but I can out talk all of them. That's what I would think. And I never thought of myself as a comedian. I thought of myself as a storyteller that was trying to get to the next song. So I'd sing a song in my church services that I would do, and I would tell a little story, give the man time to change this. That's the way it started. But
Right.
then as I started telling my stories, they got longer and longer, and it became more magical. And I found out that's what I was supposed to be doing. The
Yeah.
humor. And where I thought it was just something to do to make sure they're listening, it eventually became the thing. You know, it
Would you rather tell a story or sing a song if you have like 4 minutes?
well, if I've got a good story, uh like right now, I think I've got a lot of good stories, but I think everybody's heard them. But if I have a new good story
I know what
that
you're saying.
no one's heard before, but I know is going to kill them. Oh, please. I'd rather do a story any day. I mean, I love to hear people laugh.
Would you rather write a comedy bit or write a song?
Write a song.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Because
'Cause-
there's royalties.
but you always even though you're hilarious, I mean, you are in my book you're a comedian, but you always stayed away from that title. You always pushed as entertainer, singer, songwriter.
I just don't feel like I'm, and it's not because I think there's anything wrong with being a comedian. I just don't think I am one. A comedian, in my mind, is someone who tells 3 jokes on a subject, and then they change the subject and tell 3 new jokes on a new subject. I
Mhm.
saw Jerry Seinfeld do it when I went to see him in concert. I left there knowing nothing about him, but I
Mm.
had laughed many, many times. But it was not a like I left. Oh, I feel like I know Jerry Seinfeld and his family, and his kids, because he doesn't really do any stories about. He's a comedian. He is a true
Right.
comedian in my brain. And then, even though Bill Cosby ended up being a belly flopper, he was a master storyteller. And
Yeah.
I saw him in concert, and I left thinking I knew him,
Mm.
and thinking that I knew his wife, his kids, because he tells, stories on his, and all the preachers that would come to our church that were funny would tell stories on their families.
But Mark, I struggled with that because when I started in the clubs, and in the clubs you do the joke, like how many minutes in a minute I wanted to get 9 to 12, which was very high number, but I've
Nine
always
to 12
aspired
laughs.
laughs a minute, which is
Yeah.
I was trying for the hard, like they used to call me the machine gun of comedy because I just want to get. Then I started when I accepted Christ, started doing the churches. I found out like hitting them hard with all the comedy, they didn't want that. They want to know more about me. So I started slowing it down. I'm still doing, I'm not doing 12 because I gotta tell a story now. And you're right. Now they feel they know you and they come to you like, oh, I know you. Oh, well, I don't think you do, but you're right. The
But
story.
they know a facet of you, and I'm looking all the time for news stories I can tell on myself, you know,
Mhm.
but they're not that, I don't break a leg every year, when all my stories have come from horrific experiences,
Mm.
like my motorcycle story. It's hysterical, but it hurt. I broke my
You
leg.
broke, yeah.
Yeah, I broke my leg getting that story. And then when I pivot on your good foot, one of my old stories, I broke 11 bones getting that story. So I said, Lord, could I please have some new material that doesn't hurt?
But
But
you had a story that really impacted my family. I'll tell you which one. You have a brother named Michael who's older than you and a little sister, right?
right.
But you used to tell the story that your dad at night would put you and Michael and make stories where you guys are the superheroes.
Yeah.
And for years I did that with my kids after I heard
Oh,
it from you, and I gave you the credit for it, of course.
how
But I would tell
wonderful.
my story and my kids would just love it and will be in the problem, and then John and Carol superheroes will save the day. And
Yeah.
that was a power. You remember that story,
Oh,
right?
yes, yes. He
Yeah.
bought a skull that glowed in the dark at Disneyland, and it would peek around the doorpost, and come floating into the darkness. And Daddy would say, long ago and far away, as he floated that skull over our little bed, there were 2 boys named Mike and Mark. And I'd go, that's us. And he'd scare the holy something out of you, right? But at the very end of the story, it didn't matter how big the monster, how ooey gooey the castle, the horrific, imagination of my father. At the perfect time, he was going to turn that story, and Mike and Mark were going to become superheroes and kill the monster and save the day. And it was always an adventure. And then he would tell us a story about the Lord before we go to bed, and those were always good too. So I learned a lot about storytelling from my father.
Amen. And that's, if anybody watching or listening to this, I think this is the best advice with your kids or your grandkids to share stories like Mark's dad used to tell them, because it did something for my kids. They weren't scared of like, there's a monster under the bed and they're ready to go. They don't care. Now tell me, you had a normal growing up. You have a loving mom and dad. Yes, they spanked you
Oh
because,
yeah.
our parents used to spank us at the time. But uh, when did you feel like did you automatically were inherited the faith, or you had at a point where you rebelled and then you came back to Christ?
Well, um, I don't think I ever rebel. I mean, some people might have looked at some things I did and think I was rebelling, but I never went anywhere. You know, Jesus said well, God said through David when he wrote Psalms, he said, though I make my bed in hell, you are there, you know. So there's nowhere you can go that you're out of the care of your father,
Right.
you know, and I met the Lord at church camp when I was 14. I
Mm.
invited him into my heart and I became, you know, I got saved, we say in the Baptist church, you know. And and from that moment on, I knew I wanted to sing about him. I wanted to talk about him. I wanted to learn more about him because he seemed like the nicest thing I'd ever run across. Anybody who'd love you enough to die for you surely is on your side. And
Right.
so I thought I'd follow him, or at least do my best to try to follow him. And went to college, and the Lord called me to do this while I was there. And that's really the whole journey. And looking back now that I'm 61, I really do think he called me to do this, you know?
Yes, there's no going back and changing that. But
No.
you bless so many people, and I toured with you, and I've seen the reaction from the audience. And I love what you do, because at the end of 99% of my shows, I end up with giving an invitation to Christ. And a lot of comedians like you don't do that. You don't. You close on a big laugh. I go, well, my whole purpose of doing this comedy is to get them to that last point where they accept Christ.
Well,
And
if you're called to do humor for humor's sake, you know, have fun, go do it. But I wasn't.
right.
And you weren't. You know, there's an agenda to our madness of humor. At least for me, to me, it was
Yes.
just to make the Baptists listen, you know, just so I would know they were listening. Because I know you cannot laugh if you aren't listening.
That's true.
You will not laugh. I mean, there's no way. You got to be listening to laugh. And that's how I knew they were listening. And so to me, it just became like, oh gosh, they're listening. And I want to woo the bride to the bridegroom. I want to convince people that a man rose from the dead. I want to let people know that God is not angry with you. He is your loving father whose arms are wide open still. You know, he's crazy about us. You know that song? Oh, you may not remember this, but when I was growing up, there was a song we'd sing in Sunday school. Be careful, little feet, where you
Where you
go.
fall,
Be
be
careful.
careful. Oh, I know
Well,
it, of
I
course.
used to think my feet, I have hyper feet. They can't be careful. And I, you know, think the Father up above is looking down in love. But I always thought he's just, you know, back then I would think he's waiting for me to do something wrong. But as
Right.
I've grown to know him, I do believe he's watching everything you do. But it's not so he can stomp you. It's because he loves you so much he can't take his eyes off of you. You are
Amen.
the apple of his eye. I believe when I enter my father's presence, his heart skips a beat, like any healthy father when their child enters their presence.
Amen.
Don't
Amen.
you think?
Of
A
course.
healthy father or grandfather, especially. I can't imagine. You know, I never got married, never had kids, so I missed that part.
Uh-huh.
But, you know, I'm grateful. I don't regret that at all.
Well, I
Um,
think God showed you, for someone who's doing 200 days a year, you were, God was like, I'm not going to get this guy busy with anything else. Yeah, now, that will get us to, but I want to ask you one question before we get to that, because you are the most satisfied single I know. You're very
really.
happy. Yeah, you're very happy. You're
But I'm
very
not alone.
fulfilled.
Yeah, but the thing is, I'm not alone.
And that's why I want you to give several advice to single people. Like,
Well, you
what are
don't
you
have to
doing?
be alone. I mean, I'm surrounded by lifelong friends that I actually grew up with. I live
Mm,
in what I call a compound. When I was moving back to Houston about 20 years ago, one of my best friends from really elementary school, seventh grade, that's not elementary, that's middle school, but
yeah.
Dina Davidson is her name. She said, why don't we buy a piece of property and subdivide it? You build your house, I'll build my house, and you know, we can grow old as neighbors. And we did.
That's a
And
great
we got a
idea.
pool between us. and a pool house. And we've had guests that people have come to recover everything from cancer to plastic surgery in that
Oh.
pool house, and it's just been a community almost. There've
How
been,
many of your friends are doing plastic surgery that they need to
well,
recover?
not mine, but Dina, she's in the secular, I've always been in my little Christian world, and Dina's always been in the secular, corporate world. And so
Okay.
she knows a lot of interesting people that I would never run across. And I've introduced her to a lot of wonderful people that she would never have met. So it's been a really good situation.
Now, so you're surrounded with friends all the time. You have, like last time I called you, you said you have 4 ladies that cook for you every
Yeah, I
day.
do. I do. Colleen, Dina, Shelly, and Deborah, that we're all going through the COVID thing together. And those ladies cook at my house every night because they don't want me going out to eat. And I will go out to eat. I
Yeah,
gotta eat.
you gotta eat.
And so they're cooking it for me. And I'm telling you, I'm gonna, that meme that was going around about when this is over now, will 600-pound life contact me or do I need to contact them? Have you, because I've gained some, have you ever seen the 600-pound life
No, I didn't.
on TV?
No, I didn't.
Oh
Oh, the
my,
600-pound life. Yeah, yeah, that show where they keep
with a
following
person
someone.
who's
Yeah.
overweight and a
Oh,
girl.
yes, yes.
I'm going to need to be on that show once this is over.
I always tell people, I said, there's a thin line between quarantining and hibernation, and I can't
Yeah.
find it. I can't find it. But
Have you taken a lot of naps?
you know what I've been doing? I've been doing a nightly live show called Live with Nas Quarantining in Corona every night for an hour. And what happened is it's a lot of work, putting together an hour show every night except
Now, where
Sunday.
where can we see this on your Facebook
On
page?
my personal Facebook page, which is Comedian Nazareth 1, is you can see it every night. And what I do is, you know what? I just felt the Lord was telling me again. Came from Southern Baptist, so the Lord never said it's me talking to you.
Right.
So it was like, okay, I wanted to do a show where I'm not the funny guy. I start with some comedy, but then I want the audience to be funny. So I said, okay, guys, here's the question for you tonight. Okay, now the churches are online, what would be their name changes to? And then you get and then the people start commenting. I have 1,000 views, sometimes 500, and people say, okay, this would be called the Slow Connection Church of God, the Chapel of the Sheltered Brethren, Church of Jesus Christ of Non-Essential Saints, stuff. And these are people coming with that joke, and they're feeling funny. So, and then started going down from 1,000 views to like 800. So I said, you know what, that's a lot of work. I'm not even getting anything done through the quarantine. And I get these emails, Mark, or messages. You know what, I've been anxious and depressed, and this is my only time of the day that I get to be funny and forget about my problems. So I'm still doing that until California opens up, hopefully.
Yeah.
But that's why I do that show. So I haven't had time to do anything else. But
Uh,
doing, sometimes I get invited by churches. Like tomorrow, I'm doing 20 minutes on Zoom for comedy for corporate people. I'm like, okay, we'll see what we're gonna do. But tell me, when do you feel creative? Is there's a process? Is there's a time?
mm.
When do you feel creative to write songs or comedy stories?
Well, if I hear for a song, if I hear a good hook, which a good phrase or good that I haven't heard before in a song, maybe, is always how that works. But um uh the humor usually has happened for me on the stage, actually. I think that's why the secular comedians do so many of those little clubs, which we don't get to do.
Right.
So I honed my stories in little churches from 1980 to 1988. I had probably 2 albums worth of stories by that time
Right.
that I did eventually record for Word Records. And but a lot of that would happen, I'd be driving every 200 miles, I'd be at another church. So I had a lot of time alone in the car. driving down the road thinking, this is way before Sirius radio or
Right.
cell phones. I had a pad and pen next to me in the car, and I would be thinking about stuff and get to laughing, just thinking about stuff. And I'd pull over and write it down, you know, and that's literally what I would do. And then that night I would talk about that. And so that's how it kind of, you know, evolved.
And you built your comedy. But how often do you write a new song?
I have, when I need it, when there's a deadline, like I did my latest project. Boy, my nose is shiny. I did my my latest project called "What's Not to Love." I got with Reba Rambo and Donnie McGuire, and we wrote that. Well, we wrote 4 of those songs, and it took, you know, we could write 3 a day, maybe. We did when we were together, and because we didn't get to be together very long, so we had to knock it out. But they may not, you know, I like the songs, but who knows? You never know if a song's gonna connect with an audience until the audience hears it. You might think they'll love it, you know, you might hope they'll love it, but until they hear it, they decide, you know, if it's a good song, just like the audience decides if it's a good joke.
Or not. You're right.
You
I
know,
think it's funny, and then I go try it a couple times, doesn't work. Now, is there's like a group of people in Nashville that listens to a song and decide, oh, this one has a potential, is gonna make it, or no? Is this
well,
true?
each publisher has their publishing directors, and each record company has an artist and repertoire director, which is a person who finds good songs and gets them to the artist they think should sing them on their record label. But there's not a committee somewhere, you know, saying, oh, we approve that song, we don't approve that one. No, the audience decides, really.
What's- Now tell me, you were on tour on your own for about 200 dates a year for 8 years on your own, or doing comedy and singing, and then you joined the Gaithers, where you have now to go with the agenda of 4 other people, the quartet that was with you, and you have to go with their agenda and with their program. What was that like? How did you handle that?
Oh, it's fascinating. Especially for someone with ADD, because I had the quartet over here. When I got bored with that, I could go do my solo stuff. In 1988, I joined the Gaither Vocal Band, but I also signed a solo contract with Word Records. And that's how
Oh.
the solo humor comedy thing took off. But at the same time, the vocal band thing was taken off. So they were both complementing each other, really.
Oh, they didn't interfere with each other. When the
No,
Gaither said you have to be with us for all these.
we were with him. Whenever he wanted us, we were there. And we worked our schedule around his.
Yeah,
That's the way we did it.
I toured with David Phelps, and I toured with you, and I did one thing with the Gaithers in Indiana Convention Center. That was my only performance and my highest selling product sale, of course.
Really?
Oh yeah, it was big, but that's awesome. But you were with them every night, and you were like the fun part of the whole when they do. I mean, they have different people singing and stuff, but you were boom. You were always funny when you were, and I can tell it wasn't something you just wrote. One time you took your shoes off and you started
Oh,
singing.
yeah. Kind of wipe
Yeah.
my nose down.
Oh no, it's
Uh,
okay. It's still shining. It doesn't
yeah, I
matter.
see the shine. I can't believe how greasy I look. But
No, no.
no, that was so much fun because you know Gaither's crowds were so massive. You
Right.
know, when there's like, I mean, at one point we'd have 18,000 people in the audience. Well, all you got to do is get half of them laughing, and
And you got
you know, you don't even have to get them all laughing. Just get half of them laughing, and you're going to have a lot of laughter.
that's right.
So it was fun.
What's your best memory with Gaither? What do you think?
Probably um the first praise gathering that I did. They did an event called Praise Gathering back in the
I
day.
remember. Yeah.
And he turned me loose on that stage with to tell some stories. And and it was there were 11,000 people there, and I'd never been in front of 11,000 people in my life.
Uh-huh.
And it was in the round, which means the stage was in the
Yeah.
center,
Oh,
and
that's hard.
the people were all the way around you. Oh my gosh, it was so. I've never been so. I felt like I was incubated in laughter. I've never heard laughter so loud. I've never heard it coming from every direction towards me, no matter where I. And it was perfect that night. Everything was perfect.
Oh,
I mean, it was like, you know what it's like when
yes.
you throw the joke out and then they hit it back. It's like playing tennis and you hit it again and they hit it back, and it's like you throw a line and they laugh, and then you throw another one and you time it so right about when it peaks, you hit them again. You know what that's like. It's
Oh,
incredible.
you know what? I know it not as much as you do, but I remember speaking of Houston, Texas, where you're from, I did the Toyota Arena for men's conference. There were 17,000 men. So I went up and they told me to do 20 minutes, and I did my 20 minutes and it killed everything full perfect. And then they brought RG3, the football player, to go. And then they come to me and say, "Hey, Naz, we want you to close the show. Do another 20 minutes." I'm like, "Wait, it took me a month to prepare." I said, okay, just give me 5 minutes. And I went up and did the same thing. I mean, different material, but it killed. And I know the feeling. Will you say something and it's like everything, you can just shake your hand and they're gonna, move your hand, they're gonna laugh. But it was one of those nights. But to be in the set, I hated being in a circled stage because I always want to see the audience and I don't want anybody behind me. So how,
Oh,
you know how you do it? So when you try to make sure you tell the jokes, but there's people behind you,
yeah, but you
you
have
can't see if
cameras. See, they had cameras everywhere.
right.
So nobody was out of view of my face because they always had the cameras right on this big old waterhead. And that way everybody saw it. If my back was to you, you could still see me big as day up on the screen. So that was with Gaither, it was just a perfect scenario.
Now, where is Gaither now? Are they still performing? Are they
Oh
still
yeah.
doing stuff?
Yeah, not as much, but he's 83 or 4 now and still
Hmm.
going wide open. I mean,
Really?
what I think is wide open. He's got 2 tour buses and all this stuff, and they're
That's fun.
still packing crowds, good crowds.
Now, when did you think about the song Mary Did You Know? Because a lot of people don't know. You're the one who originated, you wrote that song. Tell us about that,
Well, I wrote the lyric.
the lyrics to it.
I wrote the words in 1984, and in 1991, Buddy Green put music to it. And then also in 91, Michael English recorded it, and then Kathy Mattea recorded it shortly after that. And then Kathleen Battle, so it went from contemporary Christian music
Uh-huh.
to country, Kathy Mattea, to classical. The first 3 cuts of it were 3 different genres of music. I mean, that was strange. And then it's gone of course, it's gone all different kinds of styles, but I like them all, really. I've not heard one I didn't like.
Every Christmas play I watched live or I performed, they had to sing it. It was just amazing. And my son was asking me. I said, I told my audience, I said, I'm gonna do my best to make Mark sing a couple lines of it. And then my son goes, he would never do that. And I go, well, maybe if I, do some favor with him. Would you sing a little? I know every day you have
Oh,
a
yeah.
live show. Go ahead, go for
Sing a
it.
little bit of Mary Did You Know?
Yeah,
Oh,
because you're the best
yeah.
at singing it.
Oh, Mary, did you know that your baby boy will one day walk on water? Mary, did you know that your baby boy will save our sons and daughters? Did you know that your baby boy has come to make you new? This child that you've delivered will soon deliver you.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. Now tell me, how did you think of the lyrics? How long or how did it come to you?
You know, in 1984, my pastor called me and asked me if I would write the Living Christmas Tree program for our church. And being young in 1984, I actually was young at one time. And I didn't realize I couldn't write a Christmas musical. You know, I mean, I wouldn't want to write one now. Well, I might like to try it now, but back then I shouldn't have been trying to write one. So, but I did. I said, yeah, I'd love to, because I was starting to write songs, and he liked the way I thought about things. So he said, would you do it? So I said, okay. Well, the only good thing that came out of that probably was this one monologue I wrote between songs about Mary and what did she know? What was that like, you know, for a 13-year-old girl? That's what my college professor at Liberty said, that she was probably around 13 when the angel of the Lord. And, you know, back then they did get started early because they were dead by 40.
That's right.
You think about it. At the turn of the last century, not this recent one, but the 1800s to the 1900s, the life expectancy of an American man was 42 years.
Wow.
I mean, that's young.
That's young.
So you got to have your babies and have a grandkid or two before you check out, you know. And so Mary was young, and so you think, well, 13 is young no matter what millennial you're in. You know,
Right.
she was young, and did she know? And you know, of course, there's been a lot of controversy over the song in some circles that think I'm mansplaining to her. I read that somewhere. Another one said, there's, you know, that when I say the child that you delivered will soon deliver you, there are some Catholics who are offended by that because they don't think Mary needs to be delivered of anything, which I think I believe all of us need Christ, including Mary. You know, she birthed her own savior. And
well, she said that when she sang, you know, my savior.
yes.
So
Yeah.
so
She knew that part of it, but she didn't know he would walk on water. She didn't know. So when I wrote it, I wasn't writing it trying to explain to this child what's going to happen to her as the superior. I wrote it like I think of things. I thought, I picture a manger in my head, a manger scene, a stable, a little girl holding the Messiah in her arms, uttering unintelligible baby noises, was the word of God lying in her arms. And I think I'm getting chills right now thinking about it. My mother and I used to talk about this. Wouldn't you love to have run into that stable and said, do you realize this baby is going to walk on water? He's going to heal the sick. It's like when I was a kid, I would run up and say, do you have any idea what's going on down here at the park? We're having a blast. And, you know, it's like that. It wasn't like I'm explaining. He's like, this is exciting. And how sad for those people in the motel.
Yes.
They missed God being born in the barn. They were just feet away. They were sleeping like logs. They had a room. There was no room for Mary and Joseph in the inn, but there are a lot of people in that inn that day that missed God being born in the barn. Can you believe that? I mean, that kind of thing. And then I was, you know, a lot of the questions I had for Mary didn't make the song. The only ones that made the song were the ones that rhymed. You know, a lot of questions I'd like you. What was it like raising God? What was it like changing God's diapers? What was it like teaching the word of God to talk? What was it like being his little brothers, following him through school? You know, well, that would be hard. You're old. You know, the teacher says, well, now when Jesus was in my class, he made straight A's. Well, sure, he wrote the book, you know. So my mother and I, we would discuss these things about what that was like, because, you know, we believe he was God, but he was also a man. And he came to be he humbled himself and became one of us.
Amen. What, is mom still around?
No, she passed in 2014.
I'm sorry. And I know you always, the way we talk about her, I know you love your mom and dad. And is
Oh
your
yeah.
brother still in Virginia, I think?
My brother's in Virginia, my sister's in Virginia, my dad's in Virginia,
Oh,
and my mom is buried in Virginia. They moved to Lynchburg. I went to college in 1975. They moved there in 1977. So they've been in
understand.
Virginia longer than they were ever in Texas. But I told them, I don't know what you're doing up here. As soon as I'm done, I'm headed back to Texas. But they
But
loved it.
but you moved to Nashville for a few
Yeah, I've
years.
moved around, but my goal was always to get back to Texas. But I had to go to Nashville when I was with the vocal band, you know.
Right.
And I love Nashville. I love living there. But this is my home.
Would you would you take one more tour? Would you do one more tour?
Probably not. Well,
Really?
maybe. I
What
don't know.
if
Probably not. It would just have to be. It would have to. I'd have to look at it and see what if it would be worth it. Because I can sit in my bedroom slash studio slash office and reach more people than I can on the road.
that's
If
just
it's really about reaching people, and I do know that, and I don't have to make money anymore because I'm retired. I'm living on my retirement right now. So it's not about, it's not about making a living. I would do it if it was really fun.
Hmm. I know Shonda will probably be part of it. I know you guys are very good friends
Well, we've talked
with
about
Ken.
it before, but it's just that we just never gotten around to it.
Okay, I don't want to take much of your time anymore, but tell us about your Facebook show. I hear you, and you sing some from a Baptist hymnal read book.
Right
Where do you
here.
where do you get a book like that? The Baptist hymnal.
This is I grew up with this and many other different kinds of hymnals. There's one called an All American hymnal that really was the one we had at the Berean Baptist Church. But
Uh-huh.
I love the old hymns. I love them. I grew up singing them. These are the songs of my youth
And
that we
there,
would sing every Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night. So when I started doing, I have a show that I've been doing for a couple of years now called Mondays with Mark. I need
okay,
to have you on that sometime.
I would love that.
Mondays with Mark every Monday night, 7 p.m. Central. And then when the pandemic hit and I'm sitting here alone, bored, I thought, well, I can go live every day and check in on my people because there's a lot of single people like me who are going through this all by themselves. Excuse me.
Right.
Fortunately, I am not one of those people. I'm thankful that I'm not going through this by myself, but there are a lot that are. And I would go check in on them every day. And you would think, I mean, they're so appreciative. The comments I read, I've not had any negative comments. I thought for surely someone would say, "You're on here too much," and I'm sure a lot, maybe some are thinking it, but no one
No,
said
I
it
know.
yet.
No, everybody is very, yeah, appreciative of you to be singing to them and talking to them every
But
day. You're right.
I hope they're singing with me because I think most of the people who follow me grew up on these songs also, and they tell me that they're singing along, and so I pretend I can hear the harmonies.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, how can people watch it? Where can they go to watch your show?
Just go to my Facebook page, Mark Lowry, and or my YouTube page, same name, Mark Lowry. Should bring it up. And I call it Mark Lowry Live, and I call it episode. Like today was episode 45, and that's at 10 a.m. Every day, uh,
Central Time.
Central Time, 10 a.m. So it's 8 a.m. out there in California.
Right.
But I can be your wake up call.
That that's awesome. And you know what? It's amazing. I watch it and it's really lifting people up. Mark, thank you for what you do, what you've done, and what you're gonna do. I believe this is not you're retired. You're not retired. You're just taking a break.
Not retired. I'm
No.
just not touring anymore like I used to. I just want to do one-off dates every now and then, and the fun stuff.
How can people get your products? I know you
You
have
can
a
go to
lot of
marklowry.com. In fact, this week there's a code, I think 20. What is the code? If you go to my Facebook page, you'll see a ad that says the code, and it's 25% off everything on the website. So
Okay, well, good. If you go to marklowry.com or go to the Facebook Mark Lowry and then get the code, then go to his website and you'll be able to do. You used to do on closing, you used to do a show with Tony Campola.
I did. We did a couple of years worth of programs just on the web, way before Facebook, I think.
I remember that. I used to watch it a lot.
It was on YouTube. In fact, I go back to 2006 on YouTube. That's a long time ago.
But you were always ahead of technology. You were always ahead of technology.
Well, I just knew that's going to be the way to reach people, more people, reach them all at once. Jesus said, he used to say, or he said this at one time back, of course, when he was, what am I saying? Jesus said, we would do greater things than he. And I always used to think, now, how? What does he mean by that? What could we possibly do that could be greater? But one thing we do that is greater than him, we can reach more people.
Amen.
In a moment's notice, we can reach around the world. People watch every day from India, Japan, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, of course, and all of America. And it's amazing. And I don't have to leave my bedroom.
Oh, it looked like you were in the backyard, or was that just a green screen?
No, this is my bed's not made, so I got the lights out.
Last thing, what do you tell a single person right now? Because you always say that Paul said it's better to be single.
Yeah.
Okay. What do you tell
Paul
in 1
did
minute?
say that. I don't think I think it's probably better to well, I think for me it's better to be single, for me, because I've always been single and I can't imagine anybody wanting to get married. I don't understand why you would want to give up your freedom like that. But that's just me, and it's always been me. And so here I am, 61, no grandkids. But you know what? TD Jake said, if you get 80% out of life, you're doing good.
That's,
That's
right.
I've gotten a lot more than 80%. And I think I've got a lot of spiritual grandkids out there.
Amen. And your sister's kids and your brother's kids are in Virginia.
Oh, well, no, my brother's kids are grown and out of the house. One is a nurse in Ohio. One is married to a fella near Fort Worth, Texas, Dallas area. And then the other two are in Virginia yet and trying to figure out what they want to do.
And they brag about Uncle Mark, right?
Well, I don't know.
I'm sure. Well, thank you so much for what you do. I want to encourage everyone listening, go to YouTube, Mark Lowry, go to his live show every morning at 8 a.m. Pacific time and 10 a.m. Central. You guys not only going to laugh, you're going to be blessed, and it's going to draw you closer to the Lord. Mark, thank you for what you do. You blessed my life. You helped my career, and I appreciate you. And I love you, man.
Thank you, Nazareth. God bless you. I appreciate you.
All right. We'll talk later. And watch us tonight at 8:30 p.m. You'll be in bed. But
8:30 my time or your time?
My time, which is
So
10:30
my time. Oh, I'll be asleep.
So some of your fans stays up, and if they're lonely, they can check Comedian Nazareth. God bless you. Thank you, Mark.
Bye-bye,
I love you,
buddy.
man. I appreciate it.
Love you too.